Welcome to Jets Overtime. It's crazy to say that training camp is around the corner, but here we are. Training camp preview presented by Honda, Quincy Nunwa, Eric Allen, Ethan Greenberg. We're going to break down what to look for in training camp, all three phases of football, but I hope in the meantime you guys feel recharged, maybe, some proper downtime in the offseason.
Yeah, I got a chance to take a nice little trip, so I feel pretty good.
Yeah, but this dude never misses a workout. It looks like he's ready to play right now.
Listen, if they give me the call, maybe.
Okay, well, here's some important dates to keep in mind once training camp actually begins. Veterans report July 23rd, 7 open practices, 3 joint practices that precede the 3 preseason games. And speaking of threes, this team has a really cool blend of veteran and young talent, but the majority of this Jets nucleus is 4 players in year 3. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, and Breece Hall.
Make no mistake, in order for the Jets to go to the promised land, they need a healthy Aaron Rodgers. With that being said, they have a ton of talented players on this roster. I'm going to take the defense, leave the offense for my guy Q. Jermaine Johnson, second-year leap, 7.5 sacks last year. He's a guy who's going to be counted on big time on the perimeter of that defensive line. How about Sauce Gardner? Arguably the top cornerback in the National Football League, a 2-time first-team All-Pro. He is the guy who's been lights out since he entered the National Football League.
Yeah, absolutely. Then on the offensive side, you talk about Garrett Wilson, a guy that's had 2,000-yard receiving years with 7 different quarterbacks. I mean, that's unheard of, right? You talk about the guys behind him that have done that. The only guy that's been lucky enough to have one quarterback and has that many 1,000-yard seasons is Stephon Diggs. I saw he had, obviously he had one quarterback. But then after that, you go to Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a beast, man. Coming off of injury and then 1,500 yards of scrimmage yards. I mean, that's a guy that's a workhorse. You love to see him get the ball in his hands and see what he does, catching the ball out of the backfield or running the ball. He's just a talented guy.
Isn't it kind of weird to think about Garrett Wilson as a breakout player? Because I feel like Jermaine Johnson this time last year, that made sense. Second year in the league, had a proper offseason. But to have a guy so accomplished as Wilson, also in the same sentence as potential breakout player, it makes sense though.
Yeah, definitely. And I think year 3 is an important year for a lot of players. It's the year where you either are out of the league or you're getting that second contract. Hopefully you have an opportunity for it. As a first round, obviously there's a little bit of a caveat there, but these guys know that year 3 is important. So for him to have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback in year 3, that's a great opportunity for him to really just shoot to the moon.
It's also kind of weird to think about Sauce Gardner being year 3, but also being like one of the veterans of that room. He had talked about giving Quantez Stiggers and rookies advice, but this is a guy who 2 years ago was with Tony Oden on the gloves every practice between periods.
Yeah, I just think you absorb so much knowledge throughout your first 2 years. And these guys, when we're talking about the Jets' young talent, they want to win. Garrett Wilson really impressed me here this offseason. It's like, what's your next step? He said, winning, and then everything else will follow. I think collectively, all the young guys on this roster feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. They all understand what the process is, what they need to do. They have Aaron Rodgers, a guy that's won a Super Bowl, that can really kind of lead them. But I think at this point now in year 3, they're really they've really started to figure out what the NFL needs in order for you to be successful.
Speaking of Gardner, 2 years in the league, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2 Pro Bowls. Caroline Hendershot caught up with him earlier this offseason for the latest installment of What's Your Why?
I know that this team's goal this year is obviously the Super Bowl. But I know Sauce always has goals of his own. What are your goals for the 2024 season?
Gonna keep grinding for Defensive Player of the Year. I said last year MVP. We're gonna keep grinding towards that too, because me saying that just means I have to do things that's never done before. Because obviously, I don't know if a corner has ever won MVP. Probably got like I said last year, .000, a lot more zeros than 0.1% chance of accomplishing it, but that's just gonna help bring the best out of me.
Coming up next, we break down what to look for on the offensive side of the ball throughout training camp.
Contact your local Honda dealer for a great deal today.
Not every play works versus everything. Otherwise, everybody in the NFL would probably call that exact same play over and over again. So there's different ways to take things away. So Aaron gives you that ability that he knows why that play was called, so he can get you to something else. I think that's something that we're always pushing and striving for, is we know we wanted this versus whatever we were looking for. Hey, they didn't give it to us. They changed it up. Okay, Aaron, let's get to something else and let those guys get used to that potentially changing so we can get a premier play.
General Manager Joe Douglas said the biggest emphasis this offseason was fortifying the offensive line. And he did that by adding 3 new starters, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, and John Simpson. After playing 4 quarterbacks in 2023, the Jets have an accomplished veteran to back up Aaron Rodgers in Tyrod Taylor. And both the receiver and tight end rooms are similar to last season, but the Jets added a big play receiver in Mike Williams. The biggest question with him right now is when will he be able to practice with his new teammates as he recovers from his ACL injury?
So as Caroline just mentioned, the retooled offensive line, one of the major changes on the Jets, let alone just the offense. And last year in training camp, we didn't get to see the week 1 starting 5 practice together. How important is that, EA, this time around with 3 new starters up front?
I like where your mind's at. Continuity. I like working with you. I like working with Quincy. The bottom line is there is more of a comfort level for all these guys because this is the second time they've heard it here in the summer, and the recall is going to be better, and that means the operation from play caller to quarterback to the players, it's going to be a lot crisper. So I anticipate the Jets to operate with even more tempo here this summer.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that they have these veterans in here that will take some time off, because then you get a nice mix and match. Because the worst thing is you have somebody come in, God forbid there is a lack of continuity, you have somebody come in and you're like, I got to go with this guy. I haven't practiced with him. We don't have great communication. I can't trust him. So it gets really important to not only have the continuity, but also making sure that the depth guys are getting some reps with them too. So just in case something does happen, you have a lot of guys that know how to practice and play together.
Right, so from a training camp perspective, actually my eyes go to the guys behind those guys. Jets started 13 different combinations last year. Olu Fashanu, the number 11 overall pick. Carter Warren enters year 2. Like, my mind kind of goes there because specifically with those two, Fashanu and Warren, those two were sponges with Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses throughout the spring.
Yeah, we're going to continue to see that, and Quincy knows this better than anybody, that Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, you're playing the long game, so you want to get valuable reps for Fashanu and Carter Warren.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at last year compared to this year, it's night and day, right? You've got some guys that are monsters on the offensive line that have proven themselves in this league. And so now they've got guys behind them that are excited to learn. And, I think as a young guy, you always want to learn from guys that have done it for a long time at a high level. And these guys have that.
Look, all eyes going to be on Aaron Rodgers, no doubt about it. We saw the no-look throws in the spring. What are you looking for in training camp outside of just what you see usually, which is him slinging the ball all over the field?
Well, I'm going to let Q handle Aaron. I'm looking behind Aaron and seeing Tyrod Taylor, you have an experienced backup quarterback. The Jets upgraded at that spot. And then the young player, Jordan Travis, coming off injury. He's the developmental player in the room.
Yeah, definitely. I think for Aaron Rodgers, you want to see him just kind of having a lot more confidence in that leg, right? I think it would be nice to see him maybe do a couple sprints, like maybe, throw the ball on the field and you sprint all the way to the end zone just to kind of show us, have the crowd cheering up there in training camp. I think that would be fun to see. And for him, it'll just give him a little bit of confidence booster.
Well, like Jordan Travis, you had mentioned this, where you have to see where he is in his recovery. Will he or will he not take reps throughout training camp? Same goes for Mike Williams. Probably going to start on the physically unable to perform list. Robert Saleh said he's on a similar timeline to Breece Hall, who did start on the PUP list. He wasn't activated until August 15th of last year. No preseason for him. So with that being said, if Mike Williams is on a similar time frame, which receivers are you looking for to maybe take a little more reps? Maybe you have them circled on the depth chart.
Well, Williams is targeting week 1 for his return, that he's just ready to go. We'll have to see what happens in training camp. I'm looking at Xavier Gibson, if he can take another step after an impressive rookie season. And Malachi Corley is an interesting playmaker who is going to have to refine his route running here in the National Football League.
Yeah, so Malachi Corley is definitely going to need to take some time to really understand the league and understand his route running, but he's got some guys ahead of him that can really help him. I'm really excited to see the tight end group, though, right? You talk about a group that had a little bit of a scare in the offseason, like maybe they're going to draft somebody to replace us, but those guys brought nobody in, and they have an opportunity to really show their confidence because the team is confident in them.
Look, Tyler Conklin, career year last year. You'd imagine with Aaron Rodgers, could be in for another career year in 2024. Coming up next, we break down what to watch for on the defense and on special teams throughout training camp.
That is the essence of having success in the NFL, in my opinion, is continuity. To play championship level football, it takes great players, number one, and it will never be any different than that. Great players. And then on top of that, you need these great players to hear the same things over and over and over again, to the point where it becomes just part of their DNA, and unconscious competence kicks in, and guys are just reacting. They're not thinking anymore. And we're starting to flirt with that now in year 4 with this group. So it's exciting. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go, and we got the players that are capable of taking us to a whole nother space.
The Jets had a top 5 defense in 2023, led by its defensive line. But that group will look a little different this season. John Franklin Myers and Bryce Huff are no longer on the team, but Joe Douglas made a big trade in the offseason to acquire Hassan Reddick. There are a few new faces at defensive tackle as well, like Lecky Fotu and Javon Kinlaw, but the rest of the defense returns most of its starters from last season.
Quentin Jefferson out, Al Woods out, Javon Kinlaw and Lecky Fotu, both the newcomers of the group. And it's hard to evaluate that spot in the spring. What do you think they're going to bring to this room in 2024?
Well, Solomon Thomas is back. That's a big re-signing. He's coming off a career year. Javon Kinlaw, he reunites with Robert Saleh. He was his defensive coordinator with the Niners back in 2020. Saleh knows what he's getting, and he thinks he'll be able to pull that potential out of Kinlaw, who's a monster of a man. I really like his length. The Jets think he's going to be a perfect fit in this defense. Fotu, I don't think a lot of people know about him, but the Jets think they probably got a diamond in the rough who's going to thrive in this system.
Football as a whole, right? I think the trenches are the most important part of the game. So these guys are really important to the defense. You want to see them make a lot of plays in that front end, so that then it makes it easier on the back end. You have so many great players out there. I really want to see how the edge does, right? Yep. When Reddick gets out there, when McDonald gets out there, right? We want to see him make that leap. We saw Jermaine Johnson make a terrific leap. We want to see that same thing for Will McDonald this year.
I also think we talk about this new look offensive line. The defensive line is going to benefit from going up against guys like Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses day in and day out. The other position of change, quote unquote, is like safeties, the starting position next to Tony Adams, because last year was supposed to be Chuck Clark and Jordan Whitehead. Chuck Clark gets hurt, misses the year. Jordan Whitehead's in Tampa Bay, so Chuck Clark is now slated to start, and this is a guy who's smart, he's versatile, but he never really got his shot to show what he has with this Jets defense.
If I'm a safety, this is the team I want to play with, because the Jets have the top cornerback trio in football. Chuck Clark is a heady ball player. He showcased his versatility in Baltimore. I thought Tony Adams took some steps down the stretch last year. And Ashton Davis, fellas, he is a ball magnet. Anytime he's on the field, the ball finds him.
Yeah, definitely. I really like Chuck Clark. I want to see what he does coming off of injury, right? He's going to be hungry because he left Baltimore. They gave a couple other guys some money. They showed them more love. He came here hungry to really prove himself, had an injury, so let's see what he does coming back from this year. We have a few guys on this team that are hungry after injury on offense and defense. I want to see how they improve. Now, Tony Adams, that's another guy. I like him, but I want to see more from him. I really want to see him take that next step this year. Now he's the older guy in the safety room in terms of, I know this defense a little bit more. I've played in it. So it'll be exciting to see. And then Ashton Davis, man, the guy just shows up. You don't ask too much of him, but every time he comes out there, he makes a play.
The newcomer of the room, too, we all thought Isaiah Oliver, signed in the offseason, was going to be a corner, transitioning him to safety. And then in terms of the Jets special teams, the specialists are back. We know that. Big wrinkle in the equation is that there's a new kickoff rule. So it's going to be interesting to see who rotates back there and how Brant Boyer approaches week one, which is probably going to be a crapshoot.
I don't anticipate Brant Boyer showing too much in the preseason. I mean, but it's going to be interesting to see how teams do approach this, not just on the practice field, but are they going to hold their cards until week 1? This could be a monstrous change throughout the league.
Absolutely. Make kickoffs great again. I think one of the things that made Boyer so great was his creativity. And I think over the years, they've really kind of taken that away from him, right? There's been so many things that have made kickoffs not as exciting. So this year, you're getting an opportunity to see, okay, what can he do? How can he be a little bit more creative and really kind of show something out there with the returners that he has? You signed Tariq Cohen, a guy that's, done some kickoff returns. Obviously, you still have Gibson, so it'll be an exciting year.
Coming up next, we're going to tell you which specific players you need to keep an eye on throughout training camp.
Contact your local Honda dealer for a great deal today.
Like, these are my stomping grounds right here, man.
I was a little kid wearing a Jets jersey to school, running around the backyard.
This was really where you found out you're wild. Like, what's your reason of playing football?
I came here, but I knew I wasn't finna be done here. I wasn't finna be average.
I gotta do this thing until I can't no more, until I physically can't.
Seeing was for a while, how would you compare him to DJ Reed?
And he's just like, I'm gonna do everything full force until the wheels fall off.
Sooner or later, he'll cut you down.
Make sure you tune in tomorrow night on our Jets Digital Properties for a brand new series of the Emmy Award-winning 1JD Films team. The sports world will get an up-close look at how the stars of the New York Jets rose to professional football. Shot on location all over the country, Origins takes you to where it all began with the stories of sacrifice and triumph on the road to the NFL. Around the corner from Origins is the start of training camp.
All right.
So let's go with a couple questions here. Everyone's favorite question, breakout player to watch at training camp, EA.
We've been talking a lot about the offensive line. How about Joe Tippmann, the second-year center? Remember last year he actually started at guard. Now he is at the pivot. He's got a better command. A lot of people talked about how he was more vocal throughout the spring. So I want to see him take that next step. And I'm betting on you, Mullet.
What about you, Quincy?
I'm rooting for the hometown guy, Jeremy Ruckert. I need to see the breakout from him. I want to see him really show up. I talked about it before. They were thinking about bringing somebody in to replace these guys. That was the talk, I should say, and nothing happened. So now you get that extra confidence booster. The team loves me. They want me to go and prove myself. So this is the year. This is the time.
And Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas both talk very highly of Jeremy Ruckert, also a year 3 player with Garrett and Saw, same draft class. Newcomer to watch? Where are you going?
We talked about Kinlaw before. I'm going to be watching him because he's got really freaky athletic traits. And again, we've seen this happen in the past where free agents have joined the Jets along that defensive front and they end up having career years. Can the Jets get the best out of him? It starts all in training camp. I know Robert Saleh is excited to coach him up.
Yeah, I'm looking at Braylon Allen. This guy is a monster, right? When I walked up to him the other day and I saw him, I said, whoa, this is a running back. Like, he looks like a linebacker. So I want to see what the Jets can do with him, especially because you have Breece Hall. So that could be a nice little thunder and lightning combination there.
I got to imagine you don't walk up to too many dudes and say, wow, you're impressive looking.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, especially at running back. Like, a guy like that, I was like, whoa, you're a running back? Like, you see the stats, but when you see him up close, that's,
20 years old, too.
Yeah.
He's still growing.
He's the youngest player in the league. He's not going to turn 21 until after the football season, which is crazy to think about. And then we have to end on probably the most common training camp question, most heated position battle.
I think a lot of people are going to look to safety, and they might look to kick returner. I'm actually going to stay right there at running back because the Jets drafted a pair of running backs to compete behind Breece Hall. I like what I saw out of Allen in the spring, and I like what I saw out of Isaiah Davis as well. Those are both big backs who were very productive on the collegiate level. Don't forget about Israel Abanikanda. So who is going to emerge amongst that group once these guys put the pads on?
Right. Yeah, you talked about some people might go to kick returner. I'm definitely going to kick returner. I want to see who is going to be that guy for this team, right? This is a whole new year. Kick returns are going to look different. Who's going to be the guys going to show up? Who are going to be the guys that are going to show up, right? Like, maybe they might put somebody else out there. I would like to see maybe, right, Jason Brownlee get an opportunity.
Wow.
Who can be exciting, right? Who can we get the ball in our hands? Like, you want to put a lot of guys on the field, and this is a perfect opportunity for guys to show up.
Look, We could break this down every which way possible. That's all the time we have tonight. Just a reminder, 7 open practices in training camp, 3 joint practices. All 3 precede the 3 preseason games. You got to keep it locked in right here because Training Camp Live, we're coming to you pretty much every week throughout training camp. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you in a couple days.